I love visual novels, and that is the undeniable truth. But what I don't love is a cockeyed up, irredeemable piece of crap. Today, we'll be looking at some of the worst, most disappointing visual novels I have ever read. And I'm not talking about random Danganronpa fanfiction visual novels you can find at the bottom of itch.io. I'm talking about visual novels developers consciously made, marketed, and released in a serious manner. Because I'll be damned if you overpay for a piece of crap. That's my job. So without further ado, my name is BruceGoneLoose, and let's dive right into what I personally think are a dumpster pile of visual novels. Star Melody, Yumemi Dreamer is about an ordinary boy in middle school named Kanato and his childhood best friend and neighbor, Yumemi. As one day the Princess Kirida from a far-off galaxy named Little Star appears before Yumemi and asks for help, as she had been chased by the monsters that destroyed her planet known as Muma. These creatures manipulate nightmares to devour people's souls, and now having followed Kirida, they have arrived on Earth and are now targeting humans. Yumemi must now become a magical girl dreamer and defeat these Muma with purification songs with the help of Kanato to protect everyone's dream. I literally can't explain every problem I have with this game in a video that's less than 25 minutes long, but I'll do my best to sum it up. First, the plot pacing is horrendous. Because it's trying to imitate being a magical girl anime, the game is separated into 12 different episodes that you can buy at your leisure. Seems pretty economical, right? Except no, because it's obviously going to cost more than buying the whole bundle after every episode is released. And honestly, who wants to come back every week to buy another part of a visual novel? I sure as hell don't. The entire concept was stupid from the start. Now the pacing suffers because every episode has to have a climax at the end and 20 minutes of nothing happening at the beginning. This leads to having to use their dogshit battle system, but oh, we'll get to that in a minute, at least once an episode. And not only that, but also sudden plot points that make no sense because there's no build-up between episodes for them. The only reoccurring plot point is that the main villains want to defeat Kirida and the Dreamers, summoning enemies, failing, then retreating most of the time, besides the one time where they win and now the heroines are distraught until they come back and win heroically. You know the drill. Fundamentally, the back and forth between the villains and the magical girl is a key point in magical girl anime. But as a visual novel, Star Melody Yumemi Dreamer tries to take on a much more serious tone. And these two things really don't collide. How can you mix child abuse, depression, and murder topics with "Hew, look at my big scary Golem-chan that came out of RPG Maker, come at me dreamers, ha 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 ha"? You probably could, but the writing of this game certainly couldn't. The battle system is a dilapidated disgrace if I've ever seen one. I programmed something better when I was 14 years old. It's turn-based, but based on the way it works, there's only really one right way to play, so they are essentially prolonged loading screens that are boring as hell. The battle then finishes with a rhythm game, and I do like rhythm games, but it's done in a very outdated way of doing them. And I wish they didn't base it off of their older rhythm-based visual novels, such as Symphonic Rain. Because yes, this is allegedly the same developer that made the cult classic known as Symphonic Rain. And that sole fact is the whole reason I picked this up in the first place. What happened, guys? That's not even half my problems with Star Melody Yumemi Dreamer, so we'll just move on. But if you got any sense about you, steer clear of this one. The Sakura brand of games, which currently number over 50 with an average development time of 6 months, are a low-quality brand of visual novel shovelware that obviously suck, but unfortunately are some of the most well-known to those unfamiliar with visual novels. And the reason for that is because the very first game, known as Sakura Spirit, was one of the first ecchi visual novels that got on Steam after it loosened its restrictions on that sort of content. But that doesn't mean it's any good. Rising judo star Takehiro Gushiken was weeks away from a match that would make or break his career, so being nervous he decided to pray at a shrine that is rumored to make any dreams come true. However, in doing so, he gets transported to an unfamiliar, ancient-looking location where he finds two fox girls. Somebody tell me where I need to pray so that happens to me. Being chased by two girls with weapons. Confused and disorientated, he gets caught up in their shenanigans and now has to find a way home. So what's wrong with it? Everything. The story itself has no substance whatsoever and is paced in a very mechanical way. The four girls Takahiro meets are obviously the main heroines, and once we get a little backstory of both the Fox Girls and the village of the Weapon Girls, the visual novel gives each girl about half an hour of focus before moving on to the next one sequentially, finally ending in a climax that leaves everyone with a happy ending. The lack of choices are sort of insulting too. You can't even pick one specific girl, you have to choose a pair of them. So it's extremely generic, but beyond that, and clearly what the entire Sakura franchise is about, is the clear motive that the only reason Sakura Spirit was created is for the purpose of fan service and ecchi. But that's it. If I wanted to see a cute anime girl flash her cleavage at me, there are a multitude of options where I can see that, and a heck of a lot more, if you get my drift. If I wanted an interesting isekai story with world building or intense action scenes, well, don't even make me laugh. The developer continues to churn these visual novels out, even with their waning popularity, but clearly they still make money, so maybe I'm the one that's wrong. But I know I'm not. Once upon a time, a man named Bruce stumbled upon a many-year-old phone visual novel based on the Gacha series. The Gacha series, not a Gacha series. And he would come to realize one singular thing. It sucked ass. And who's writing these positive reviews? The fact of the matter is, Gacha Memories is a visual novel based on a niche series that I know nothing about before reading it, but that's not even the reason I think it's bad. Though, could they really not afford to give a recap of the Gacha game story that was longer than 3 lines with a black screen? It's literally every other reason. The story itself is mostly a nothing burger, and takes place after some other game where the Gacha summoner is now relaxing and living his day-to-day school life with both of his friends, and his old allied summons that he used to save the Gacha world. But due to some nefarious shenanigans, an evil god is trying to break his seal and escape using minions to attack all over the city, and Gacha summoner and his summons must save the day. Well, that's a quick summary. The story is actually a lot longer than it sounds, and unfortunately, I've read all of it. Either way, the characters are completely bland, and besides the literal yandere and Fox Spirit, there's very little personality to them. The voice acting, when there is some, is seriously some of the worst I have ever heard. Though there are 5 routes, they split up in a way that makes them feel very samey. The final boss, if you could call it that, was just dodging easy attacks and was pathetic. And the unique endings for each character were too short to justify playing the game again. Not even to mention art assets that they didn't even try to make fit the visual novel's aesthetic. Now at this point, I suspect you'd think this is a visual novel targeted towards early teenagers and kids. And you'd be right. Unfortunately, not only did the developer self-insert himself in the game with a character named Looney, Looney has a route with her succubus companion that implies sex. Also explicitly stated that the succubus was 14 years old. So we know which file to categorize the developer into. This was eventually changed, but the intent was clear and frankly gross. Also, why would you ever canonically make a succubus 14 years old? What a fucking moron. I'm working on a full video on this piece of crap, but for now, I hope you enjoyed the tidbits of a title that I hope nobody ever reads again. Song of Memories is a story about protagonist Minato Kamashido as he goes about his school days with his little sister and various friends, including Kanon, who is a childhood friend that has been bedridden with sickness for as long as he can remember. Despite the normality, news hits them that a new mysterious virus known as the X virus is beginning to spread, only targeting women and turning them into an entirely new breed of human. While fine at first, this becomes a global pandemic and things begin to take an interesting turn as Minato's life turns upside down. Now this probably looks like an interesting sounding and good looking visual novel to you, but it has so many problems that turn it into a complete and utter clusterfuck that to this day I just couldn't bring myself to finish it. But first, credit where credit is due. It does initially nail the atmosphere of fear and uncertainty of an emerging global pandemic that no one reading had experienced in recent times, as of its release date anyway. Awkward! But that's realistically it. When shit hits the fan, you expect the plot to get more interesting, and in the survival aspect of it, it does. But once you see the infected and realize you're defeating them with a crappy rhythm game with magical girls, sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? I lost all sense of the horror-esque atmosphere. The heroines themselves aren't bad, though maybe I'm biased because I like the voice actors, but the routes that I have read have a lot to be desired, and every single twist was so painstakingly obvious that I thought there would be some sort of double twist, but there wasn't, at least in the routes that I played. There is one twist that is foreshadowed through the use of the sprite animation, which is pretty cool, but overall I found myself clicking through the story just to confirm I was right about everything, which frankly is one of the reasons I never finished reading Song of Memories. But the main fucking reason is that the game is broken to shit. This is clearly a console port, and it's bad. Like, bad. The rhythm game didn't actually match the rhythm of the song. At points I had 10 FPS in a visual novel, and loads of bugs and glitches, including a crash that wiped all of my saves. And sure, it's a visual novel, so you'd think it'd be quick to get my progress back by skipping, but the clunky mess that this is makes it far worse than it needs to be. If you absolutely have to play Song of Memories, do it on the PS4, because that's where the game originally released. Otherwise, and say it with me, fuck this game. Speaking of visual novels that don't work, Shiny Days is the prequel to the infamous School Days, taking place during the summer vacation before Makoto starts his journey of being the world's biggest scumbag, but actually focuses on Setsuna, Sakai's friend and one of the side heroines you could pursue in School Days. And there was serious potential. Setsuna was probably one of the most reasonable characters in School Days, so getting to be in her perspective seemed like a really cool idea. But as you might expect, Shiny Days is about Setsuna trying to pursue Makoto for the most part, so this cool idea is immediately dismantled, not at all helping that all the choices are made from Makoto's perspective, even when we were still technically in Setsuna's perspective, just making it feel weird. Unlike Summer Days, Shiny Days adds a myriad of new content, including an entirely new, very large branch of endings featuring Inori, who is apparently Makoto's long-lost childhood friend, with Setsuna trying to get them together with mixed feelings. Frankly, I'm not sure if I think this new content is worse than the original storyline, but it was mostly uninteresting. So as I've said with School Days years ago, the best part of Shiny Days are its bad endings. And did I enjoy them? No! Because I couldn't get to them. The visual novel has a huge issue with certain processors, making it crash at random intervals that could be within a minute of you starting the game, or maybe an hour or two if you're lucky. It was largely unplayable for me to begin with, but I still pushed through and got many endings that frankly weren't worth it at all. Yeah, I get it. That's a me problem. But it shouldn't be an anybody problem if they're still selling Shiny Days for $20 to an audience that will clearly be playing this on modern PCs. Shiny Days isn't as terrible as the rest of the visual novels on this list. In fact, I like it better than School Days despite everything. But the disappointment for a lot of routes and the crashing just ruins my entire memories of it and makes it one of the worst visual novel experiences I've ever had, besides the other four. So you've heard my worst visual novels of all time. I'd love to hear yours. Leave a comment below because I want to hear your stories of terrible or disappointing visual novels, or even your opinions of the ones I talked about today. Maybe you liked Song of Memories or read Gacha Memories as a kid, but ironically, the games about memories are the ones you want to forget. I think even visual novels as terrible as these have value because we can look back at them as examples of what not to do. That's all I have to say. Hopefully I saved you from purchasing or wasting your time on these titles. And as always, hopefully I'll see you next time.